One of the things about being part of the Maga cult is it doesn't matter what Donald Trump does, you are going to find his cult members bending over backwards to try and justify his actions. But this clip actually takes it to a whole new level. In this clip, we are going to see Donald Trump's faith advisor, Pastor Mark Burns, try and defend Donald Trump attacking the Pope. Yes, a pastor is going to try and defend Donald Trump attacking the Pope. As usual, let's watch the clip in full. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts towards the end. Let's get into it.
Nevertheless, this is what the president had to say about the Pope.
We don't like a Pope that's going to say that it's okay to have a nuclear weapon. We don't want a Pope that says crime is okay in our cities. I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of Pope Leo. He's a very liberal person. And he's a man that doesn't believe in stopping crime. He's a man that doesn't think that we should be toying with a country that wants a nuclear weapon so they can blow up the world. Now, I'm not a fan of Pope Leo.
Well, I'm joined now by Pastor Mark Burns, who was the former spiritual advisor to President Trump. Thank you so much for joining us today. What do you make of this obvious tension between the Pope and President Trump?
Well, I'm not sure what former spiritual advisor means, even though I just spoke to the president. So I'm not quite sure where that came from.
Ongoing advisor, then.
Okay. But listen, naturally, the image was, offensive to billions of Christians around the world. And, the president stated very clearly that, from his perspective, he thought it was, him being as a doctor or a healer, but not necessarily him portraying himself as Jesus, the Messiah. But again, he's not a biblical scholar. That's where he has people like us in his life. My biggest question is, who made the image? That person who made the image, not the commander-in-chief of the United States of America, who is fighting to save the world and to bring peace to the world. He doesn't have time to be creating AI images. For me, the real question was the individual that made the item and gave it to the president, and that person had to type in phrases like Christ-like in order for the AI image to create it.
Okay.
So I don't expect President Trump to know everything.
No. Okay. Can we talk about his relationship with Pope Leo and, in particular, of course, events in the Middle East? Pope Leo responded to President Trump's Easter Sunday post, where he threatened that a whole civilization will die tonight. And the Pope said that was unacceptable. Was that a fair enough comment, do you think?
Well, again, I think that, peace without strength is not real peace. Again, from a pastor's point of view or a spiritual leader point of view, like the Pope, we would choose different words or phraseologies, but we are not responsible for billions of lives. We don't have our fingers. We're not in control of the world's most powerful military. We're not responsible to help protect innocent lives physically from harm. That is not our role. The Pope, again, it is easy to call out evil, like the Pope does, but it is way more difficult to stop and confront evil like what President Trump is doing. And that's the two different roles. And so the Pope, and like myself, we are moral authority, but President Trump is in a different role. And his job is to make sure that when he does protect and show strength to bring peace, it is backed up with very strong and severe languages. Naturally, the president does not desire war. He is not a warmonger. He does not want to literally wipe out a civilization. But if a regime who is holding its own people at gunpoint, a regime in Iran that is brutalizing, killing, and murdering, raping their own people, it is important that the Bible says, if you live by the sword, you shall die by the sword. And that's what President Trump is saying.
Okay, Pastor, stay with us. I just want to bring in the panel here. And Tim, when you hear that argument that it's peace through strength, what do you make of that?
Well, of course, the Catholic teaching on peace is not just the absence of war. For peace to be real, it must also have justice. So, and if you go back over centuries, there have been moments when the Church has been willing to accept the use of force with regret. I want to stress that when the Pope made his original remarks, it was an act almost of Western chauvinism to assume that they were directed only at Donald Trump. He has a constituency of over 1 billion people, which includes poor people in Africa who are suffering at the hands of military warlords. That's who that was really directed at. But when the Pope said what he said, which as the leader of a church he is entitled and I think correct to do, the right response was to say by the White House, we disagree with your interpretation of the situation. We know something you don't know, and we believe this is a just war, and here's why we think it's a just war. To which I think the Pope could reasonably respond, it's not, because Iran did not pose an immediate threat, and because just war is not just about whether you should fight it, it's how you fight it. And if the BBC's reports about the destruction of hospitals and schools or the killing of school children is correct, then it would be absurd to suggest that the Pope did not have a right and a necessity to speak out on what is very clearly a moral issue.
Pastor, what do you say to that the Pope does have a right to speak out on these things and that actually there are many people who think it isn't a just war?
Well, the Pope has a right to speak on the pushing and perpetuation of peace, but that's what we're supposed to do. Myself, even as a spiritual diplomat, I travel the world in the name of peace and trying to bring an end to conflict, and so that's naturally what we're called to do by the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ. I think the challenge is when the Pope began to make specific comments pertaining to President Donald Trump. And his foreign policy. And again, like the gentleman just stated, there are things the Pope is not privy to. Naturally, nobody wants any innocent civilians to die. Again, he's coming from the point of view that he already believes that President Donald Trump is an immoral person. These are the things that attacks that he's coming up himself against the man, Donald Trump, and not just the policies. Because if he knew the policies, if he knew all of the information that our intelligence communities know, then he would be for the war in regards to saving the innocent lives, the millions of Iranians that want peace, the millions of Iranians that are praising President Trump around the world. Again, I was just speaking at CPAC, and the Crown Prince Reza from Iran was there as one of the speakers, and I've never seen that many Iranian flags ever in my life in one place. Thousands of Iranian flags in one place celebrating and praising President Donald Trump for what he's doing. That shouldn't be the position. But the Pope
Pastor, I have to ask, as a man of faith, you know that when the Pope condemned war, he wasn't speaking just for himself, or even indeed reflecting Catholic teaching. He was quoting the book of Ezekiel. And there is a prejudice within Christianity towards peace. And there is something about the tone and the language that Trump uses, not just around Iran, but also towards the Pope, which is very distressing. Why must this president always go to war with people, whether it's with bombs or with words? Why not just say, I have a disagreement with the Pope, and that's fine? Why speak of him as if he is a candidate running against him in a primary and denounce him as a liberal? That seems to me fundamentally un-Christian in attitude.
Pastor?
Well, let me say this. I would agree that some of the language the president used, and he's always, but that's part of his character. Again, that's one of the reasons, and unfortunately, why millions of Americans have elected him. He's responsible to the people that elected him to the office. Again, he's not selected by cardinals and appointed, voted in by a group of cardinals. He's voted in by millions of Americans that desires him to do what he is doing, which is bring peace through strength around the world and not allow America to continue to walk as a mouse when in reality we're an elephant around the world. And that, again, causes more harm. The president is trying to prevent more wars. But I would agree with you. My message to the president has always been use kind words, use softer languages. But again, he's a man like everybody else. And when you're pastoring individuals, you can only give them the word of the God, give them the word of the Lord, and it's up to them to decide if they want to use it. But the president is not the pastor of the United States of America or even the pastor of the world. He's the president of the United States of America. He has a different role and a different assignment. He is not our moral authority. We should not be looking to him for spiritual guidance. We should be looking to him for national strength and national prosperity, and that is to protect the Constitution of the United States of America.
So I'm going to leave it there. It's the end of the video anyway, but I consistently say on this channel, To be MAGA, you have to be prepared to humiliate yourself and to embarrass yourself. Pastor Mark Burns, as a man of God, he shouldn't find himself in a position trying to justify Donald Trump trying to attack the Pope. The problem for me when it comes to Donald Trump is that this man can do no wrong. He can do no wrong. His audience will forever forgive him, and they will never ever hold him to account on anything that it is that he says or does. There's always a justification and there's always a reason. And let me put it to you guys this way. Imagine if Barack Obama or Joe Biden or Kamala Harris would have done what Donald Trump done in terms of attacking the Pope. How do you think Republicans would act? The party of Christians. How do you think they would react? How do you think they would conduct themselves? I have a pretty good idea on how it is that they would act, and I can pretty much guarantee it would not be a positive reaction. It wouldn't. They'd be calling for the 25th Amendment. They'd be calling for, especially for Barack Obama's head, they'd be calling for Barack Obama to leave office and to have him ousted. That's what it is that they'd all be doing. But they say nothing about Donald Trump because of the fact that it's a cult. And these cultists are culting extremely hard for Donald Trump. Pastor Mark Burns being one of them. He's an absolute embarrassment. I've never seen somebody compromise their faith so much just to appease and justify the actions of someone like Donald Trump. But Pastor Mark Burns is always going to go ahead and do it. What do you think about this exchange? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. While you guys down there, hit the thumbs up button, hit subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.